Hey everyone, good morning. It's me, Lindsay. Who are you?
And Henry.
And we're here this morning to talk about the First Amendment and political contributions and how political speech is tied in and protected with the First Amendment. In 2002, Congress passed a law, the McCain-Feingold bill, that placed restrictions on soft money, which is money from corporations that was being donated to political campaigns. In 2010, the Supreme Court overturned portions of this act in the Citizens United case. And basically what the Citizens United case said was the Federal Election Commission cannot restrict independent expenditures by unions or corporations, including nonprofit corporations, so things like Planned Parenthood or the NRA or whatever, and that those entities, corporations, are protected by free speech under the First Amendment, and so therefore that activity can't be restricted. So political donations essentially is seen as a form of free speech, of political speech. This has been pretty controversial because basically it means that a corporation is now allowed to basically spend unchecked amounts in order to ensure that a candidate either is or is not elected. Now, there are still restrictions on corporations and their donations to specific candidates. But how they get around this now is they create what are called super PACs. A PAC is a political action committee. It's basically a fundraising arm that gives money to a candidate's campaign or whatever. And so these super PACs now there's like no limit on how much they can spend. So I could make the No Trump super PAC and spend $50 billion or whatever to run attack ads against him or ads in favor of his opponent. This has all led to a pretty healthy discussion on campaign finance reform and the public financing of presidential campaigns. As it stands right now, there is a public financing option for presidential campaigns. When you do your taxes, there's like a little box that you can check to give $3 of your tax dollars to the Presidential Election Fund. But there are a lot of restrictions on that money and how you can spend it. There's a cap on, I think in 2012 it was like $45 million or whatever total that you could spend on the campaign. And so a lot of candidates choose not to go with public funding because they can raise more money on their own without using that option. So there's arguments for and against Citizens United and or campaign finance reform. The biggest argument for getting rid of Citizens United and therefore allowing the government to restrict political contributions from corporations is that when you don't do that, it sort of makes the wealthy or corporations more influential in politics. And so by getting rid of Citizens United, that would sort of, in theory, level the playing field. But the argument against that corporations use is free speech, that it's their First Amendment right to donate money as they see fit. And it tends to be a conservative versus liberal issue. Not always, but it tends to be conservatives think that corporations should be able to spend, and liberals think that there should be some restrictions on that. Hopefully this has been a good explainer on political speech and political contributions and the First Amendment. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.